Welcome to UX and Coffee. I'm Jen Romano and I'm excited to be here today with Juliana. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining. I've got my coffee today, my very fancy coffee cup.
Mm,
I went
that's
to bring my dog to the vet this morning and I was in a rush, so I went to Dunkin' drive through. Are you a coffee drinker?
I am not. I do love the smell, but the flavor, not much.
You don't
So
love it.
I'm drinking tea. I like tea. No very special cup, but it's why not too big, not too small. I like it.
Nice, nice. Um, awesome. Well, I'm excited today to talk to you and share a bit about your journey through UX, where you've been and where you are now. I've been working with you for some time and I've really enjoyed getting to know you and your journey and seeing your growth. So I'm excited today to share it with everybody else too who tunes into UX and Coffee.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm very happy to be here, and thank you again for inviting me. Um, my journey, wow, trying to summarize it, but uh, it came to me. I started as an intern several years ago in a neurodevelopmental lab, but after that, I ended up in admin roles simply because I needed a job. I have just to be honest. It was just out of necessity, and it's fine. I learned a lot and I built good relationships and I acquired all these skills that now probably then I didn't see much how much it will help me, but now I do appreciate them so much. Um, and I work with great teams. I was developing and helping projects, a lot of planning, a lot of coordinating of things, supporting senior level um, individuals and large teams. And it was fine. I had great teams, worked for great companies, but it was always somewhere there. This is not my career. This is a job which is different, and I'm very grateful for it. But it was always that feeling of what am I doing? And that little
Mm,
voice telling me that. What are you
mm,
doing? You are not using your degree in psychology. This is not necessarily what you like to do. And you are doing great, but what else? So, one way or the other, I learned about UX research. And this brought me some memories about my last job in Colombia. I'm from Colombia. So before I moved away from Colombia, I was working in market research. And I know it's different, but I share a few things. So I start thinking about, oh, I have done something similar. Uh, how can I be a UX researcher? And I started learning about it. So now I will work full time, and after work, I will be just learning about UX, reading, listening to information, and how can I learn how to be a good UX researcher so I can call myself a UX researcher. And that became a part of my daily routines. And then I learned about the class that you teach at UC Berkeley, and that's how we met. So I did that class and I love it. So I said, yes, this is what I want to do. Now, how do I get to work as a UX researcher? Um, so I also talked to different professionals already in the field, different levels of expertise in the field, and also levels in the company, some managers, some individual contributors. And in that process, I did learn that I could apply to two different jobs: UX research and UX research
mm.
operations, because of my previous experiences. So I had like two different resumes to see how I could get in the field. The first goal was how to get in the field and then see how I can move around. Um, so I did that and applied to several jobs, a lot of rejections, and the fun of looking for a job. In the meantime, I kept my full time job, and I still also studying all of this about UX research, like kind of taking actions, right? Because one thing was part of it was the desire, but the other part was taking actions on how to do it. And
Mm.
at some point, I learned about an internship, and I applied, I interviewed, and I was accepted. So that was, I saw it as a risky move because it was leaving my full-time job, full-time benefits, what we normally think as security and the
Mm,
safe place. And it was
mm.
to become an intern for 6 months. And then, oh, yeah, and then after that, what I was going to do. In fact, it was actually an internship for 3 months now that I think about it. So it was a big risk.
Wow. Yeah.
But but it's like, okay, and also your ego sometimes comes in to say, okay, you are going to do an internship again
Right.
at this stage in your life. But after overcoming all these unuseful thoughts, I did it. I had a great time. I learned a lot. And I got the offer to stay now as a full-time associate researcher. And that was amazing because that was the ideal world. Because within those 3 months, is like I need to keep looking for jobs because it's a very short period of time. What is going to happen at the end? So I stay there, and then with the changes in the tech industry or in that organization specifically, uh, last year at some point, um, there was like a buyout, something that they didn't call layoff, but it felt like a layoff. And I took it, I took the plan, and again, it shaped things. What? Now I'm in the field, but now technically I'm not because now I need to look for another job. And all these emotions come in. And we know that it's part of the game, part of, okay, how do I navigate now this of finding another job, especially because I was supporting important projects, but I felt it was important for my career and for the impact in the business and in the users, payments, bank linking, and I was going to
Mm,
start to be part of other projects. Um, but after also passing all these train of different emotions with those circumstances, I started applying to other jobs, and weeks later, I was already having my first interview, and several weeks after, my second interview, and that is the job that I have today. And different industry because now I am in education. I work for a university. So coming from the private sector, there are differences there, but it has been part of the learning process because now I was working for fintech, so an online platform, but now I do work with the community right there, like the users are there. So that has been a change, but in a good way too. It's just another
sure.
way to learn, and I'm also learning about service design. So it's not only the UX part as traditionally or how I was doing it just online. Now it's also what happens in person when the users come and interact with services and programs that way.
Yeah. Amazing. What an amazing path. I have so many questions about all the things you just discussed. I'm going to go back to one of the first things you mentioned, the difference between a job and a career. Can you say a bit more about that? Like, how do you view those two things as being different?
Um, the job, in practical terms, is what pays the bills, is what gives you the health insurance, and that might, in some companies, support your 401k or for those that might not be familiar with it, is the retirement plan. Um, that's how I see it. It's just to keep you going in life and to achieve other goals or personal or professional. But your career is something that I see as you love doing. You choose doing it. And I choose the jobs that I had, of course, but more uh, driven by the situations at the time. My scholarship finished. That means I didn't have the money to pay my bills. That's where I go back to being able to function in your day to day. And then I was applying to jobs in psychology or to be able to continue in research somehow. But that wasn't clear, it wasn't happening. And the other part is that my resume had a gap in job experience because before coming to the US, I was living in Europe, traveling and going to school. And that is great for the personal life. But in many cases, talking to some human resources professionals, they said, yeah, that is great for you. But when a manager is looking at your resume, they see that you have those 3 years of job experience. And I didn't have any job experience in the US. So I think all these elements were adding to, okay, I need to open my mind to what else I can do. And so an admin job for some time, your ego right there, right? Like, oh, but I have a degree. How come that I'm going to do this job? I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. And it makes no sense. And all this probably driven by fear. If it was a
Mm,
covered fear about what and worrying about what happens in your environment. What is your family going to say, for instance?
mm-hmm.
But that's not useful. So that's how I see the differences. The career is that things that
Yeah.
moves you, that you look forward to do.
Yeah, yeah. I love how you were able to step outside of your career and where you were ultimately going to get a job, to get jobs that paved the way. I call these, sometimes I call these stepping stones. And sometimes our stepping stones are, to go to from point A to point D, you have to do these different jobs along the way. Sometimes it's something different to pay the bills, like you mentioned. And it's okay. It's like, yes, your ego might be bruised. You might wonder what other people think because you're not doing something that is related to your degree or where you want to be, but it doesn't matter. You're doing what you need to do now, still with your eye on the prize, still with your direction and where you want to go, still working towards that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Is how you turn just those unuseful thoughts into useful ones, really, because who cares about, I mean, and this is the thing we say, or it's very common, very popular to hear, who cares about what others think? But I have been thinking we just need to be more selective about the opinions we care about. Some opinions have been useful to me personally. Um, so I welcome and I appreciate opinions, but depending on the opinions, on depending of the source of the opinion. So who cares about the opinions? To me, it's a big depends. I care about certain opinions,
Hmm.
but opinions that are going to help me grow and that have helped me grow, opinions that are not useful or because it's what society expects, or that path in the professional career that I see about having the perfect path. You go to school and then more school, then you find a super amazing job and then you grow up in that job. And sometimes you start with a motivation as a career, but it turns into a job because perhaps you don't enjoy it anymore, but it looks good, so you just keep doing it anyway. Are you happy? Some people might not. So that's how I see it, like the transition of just what is it useful to you, and if it works for you, the rest of the people can, it's their responsibility of what they think about you, is it's not your responsibility. And but it took me a time to come to this. No, don't think that it was like, oh, I have all this clear right away. It wasn't. In fact, I didn't have a LinkedIn account until I joined UX research because I needed to find jobs, and apparently that was a thing. But for the longest time, people would say, "Oh, you should open." No, no, no. I'm not going to do that. And it was, but why? What am I doing wrong? I'm working legally. I'm working on something that is useful. I was helping uh, good projects. One of my jobs, I was the last in the admin world, was in a genetics testing lab. They do amazing work. And yes, I don't have a background in genetics, but helping the people that was working on it, it makes me feel that there was a contribution there. So it's more thinking about the bigger picture, not just the day to day. Because if I think about it, it's like, oh yes, but I also help in other ways. And with one of the leaders, we created a continuing education program, and that is great because now many genetics professionals in the genetics world can now get a continuing education units through this company. So it's
Great.
about how you see what you do versus just focusing on, oh, what I'm doing.
Yeah. I love that. There's so much in the power of how we think about things. And I love that. It's not that all opinions don't matter. It's choose the ones that help you grow. Focus on the positive. Yeah. Let's
Mhm.
talk a little bit about the projects you're working on now. So you mentioned you're in education, you've been doing some service design, research. What else are you working on these days?
It's a combination of um, needs that they have, so that aligns with my projects because, and I want to stop here for a second. The position is new, so I am the first one building the UX research program. And it's for the library specifically, but this library serves the whole campus. And that's also a learning curve for me because libraries is an entire world, a field. Um, so the projects I'm working on right now are to evaluate some of the services and some of the resources we offer. And I have been fascinated about, and I'm not supposed to talk with the specifics about the project. That's why I'm saying it very
Sure.
general. But I think what is important here is how I have been experimenting more with mixed methods,
Mm,
um, because what I was doing, I tend to think that I'm more qualitative, right? More focused on qualitative research, and it is true. But I have seen the benefits of mixed methods. And in this job, I really get to see the use of that and also experimenting with different research methods, even within qualitative research. So, for instance, ethnography. That has been a big one because I haven't done ethnography for several years. And here, because the users are there, that there is huge opportunity to do ethnography because you can actually observe the users in their natural environment. They are coming every day, and I'm walking by the library every day to just get to my desk. So I get to have those observations. And obviously, when it's about doing the work, I have had lessons as well about in my first experience with ethnography was paper. You will take
mm,
notes. So when I first started a project related to that, I created a table thinking about that time about how I was going to use it. But then talking with some supervisors that have worked with the students, and some of them were going to support me with the observations. They say, oh, a Google form might be better for the students. I'm like, best idea ever because number one, you are on your phone, so nobody is not obvious that you are observing things or taking notes about something. You could be doing anything on your phone because everybody's on their phones these days. So I just keep my Google form, and when I'm doing the observations, nobody notices because I'm looking at them, but they don't know. And at the same time, it helps the data, um, because when I pull up the information, the Excel sheet just shows me exact date, time, and it saves me time to clean up the data after. So I think that has been the biggest opportunity, try to apply different methods to evaluate the programs, the resources. Our website, for instance, that's going to be a big project. Um, So I get to combine like the website, which is probably the most similar to my previous job in a platform, in an online platform. But now I get uh, to improve or help improve um, the website for the library.
awesome. You mentioned mixed methods. You mentioned ethnography. How do you decide which method you're going to use on a given project?
That is, I think that's one of the biggest questions in in my time in UX research, having that decision. What am I going to use for this? So in some projects, there is data from the systems. So that's already a part of it. But then it depends on the ask, really. Then part of that is yes, is the data that already exists from systems, but the other part is I want to see what that means. So if we have usage on some area in the library, I want to also have observations. So to to really compare. But then maybe a survey to kind of ask people that are in that area to tell me some specific things. So to me, it's about what could give me a better story about the users. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think that's kind of how I start thinking. And also the time I have, if it's something that needs to be quicker, then probably a
Mm.
method that doesn't require as much time, or if it is, then maybe less questions if it's a survey or if it's an interview. So I think that's how I do it. It depends. Did I answer?
Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like depending on what you want to learn from your users, from your participants, and then time. If you need to do it right away, if you need data
Mhm.
right away, if you've got some more time, and you mentioned you have some existing information, you have some existing data, so you
In
look at
some
these.
cases.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, yeah.
But I
That's
have to say, it's not easy. I think it's not that easy because even
yeah,
at my previous experience, it was that's one of the biggest questions. How do I going to answer? How am I going to help the team learn what they want to learn?
yeah.
And what if I should use this method? Or what if this other method might be better? So that I think that's one of the things that uh, I think we all researchers build some confidence with. This is what we choose, and we believe this is what is going to be useful. And the other thing is that I like to think about, let's add more if needed. Like if we didn't get initially what we needed to learn, let's do something else. Or the opposite. Sometimes I have planned different methods, but I realized maybe with interviews, oh, I kind of got what I needed. And I also need to be strategic about that because I am the only researcher. So it's me to
Yeah.
analyze and to prepare everything. So it's also, I think that's also part of the story there.
Right, right. Yeah, I love that. So you're able to pivot. You've got plans, but then if you need to learn more, you can add. If you've already learned enough, you can
Yeah.
change what your plans were. I love that. I think a lot of people have difficulty pivoting. People like to make the plan, stick to the plan. When things don't go well, they get confused and don't know how to react. And I think that's a really good skill to have, to practice. It's like the first time that happens, it might feel really uncomfortable. Then the second time, it's a little less uncomfortable. The third time, a little less uncomfortable. And then before you know it, you can pivot and think on the fly. And, the only way to get comfortable with pivoting is to have some of those uncomfortable situations where you're forced to pivot.
Exactly. Especially when you have shared your plan with the stakeholders and now you are trying to make changes to the plan. You see the logic behind it, but it's also key to explain to stakeholders why the changes,
Yeah.
especially if they have elevated expectations. So, yeah, it's interesting always try to balance and trying to be confident with the decision. Yeah, this is what we are going to do, and it's just going to work out,
Yeah.
and that's it.
So over communicate the plans with stakeholders. How else do you communicate with them? How often? What are you communicating? How much are they a part of your day to day work?
For some of the projects, there is bi-weekly meetings, and then we all sit and review what is happening. Um, and then from there, we keep going on the planning that normally happens on my side. But it's pretty much meetings and emails. But so far, because we are in a lot of planning stages for some of the projects, it's a lot of discussions. Also, for me, trying to see how to work with the team, because as I said, they didn't have this position before. So I'm just trying to see, oh, maybe they like more meetings than emails because maybe
Mm,
this group doesn't read emails. They normally prefer to get together. So it's been experimenting in different ways and with stakeholders relations is part of that. Um, I always think that um, in a way, but of course it's not the same, is treat that your stakeholders and staff as users because
mm,
with your UX research mindset, how you interact with them, but you understand them, you understand what they need. I do work with different levels of management or roles within the organization, and I have found that it's useful to understand, oh, okay, for instance, managers, they are really busy because they are all day in meetings or most of the time, as you have mentioned in other coffee chats, and that is true. So how can I better communicate with them? So maybe it's an email, right? I cannot set up meetings with them that often. Um, with other individual contributors that I work more directly with, then it might be more efficient if we just meet because we can just have the back and forth. So it depends. It's kind of figuring out the needs also from the team and adjust as needed.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. It's treating your stakeholders like users. They are users. They're users of your data. So
Yeah.
how do they understand and how can we best communicate to them so they understand what we're delivering? Just like we're making recommendations all the times about the products for our other kinds of users. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's
I want
also
to,
part of the education, right? Sorry, last thing is like is how to work with them, but also for them to understand how to work with us in UX
mm,
research.
mm,
So especially in academia, I've noticed that it's hard to break the same workflow or what you are used to doing in academia, but UX research is different. Um, so it's also that education on both sides as we get used to work together.
yeah. I wanted to take a moment to ask you about certifications and courses. So people often ask me, should I do a boot camp? Should I get certified? And you took my course at Berkeley. Did you do the certification or did you just take the user research course?
I only no because I didn't take the certification because it was more focused on the for designers,
Got it.
and I am not a designer, trust me on that.
Yeah, me too.
So I I I only took the UX research part of it, but it was
Yeah,
a very useful course. So I recommend that for sure.
yeah.
IDF as well,
Hmm.
so Interactive Design Foundation. Um, and honestly, I think those two mainly that have helped me so far.
Yeah,
But there are so many, and it gets overwhelming. So for whoever is looking, just try to pick one and focus on that one and look for something else. I don't recommend getting memberships for everything because some memberships don't get used. So
sure.
um, just try to take it one step at a time, and depending on the skills that people want to build. The certification is a good example. If people are going through UX design, then yeah, do the whole thing, including UX research, because that's going to be helpful uh, to do research on your own or to work with UX researchers in the future. But if it's just UX research, like in my case, I wasn't super interested to go through the whole track. Although I do work closely with this, have worked closely with designers, and yeah, now with one, but in general, I didn't feel that I needed to spend the time on the whole certification for that.
Got it. So it sounds like take some classes. If a certification seems useful, like if it's a design certification and you're aiming to be a designer, then that might be helpful. It sounds like pick one, work on one. If you want to take another when your one is done, but don't invest in a whole bunch because you might not
Mhm.
actually get through them. What other recommendations do you have? The UX job market, as you may know, is pretty wonky right now. And there have been a lot of layoffs. There have been a lot of job postings. There's a lot of hiring. There's a lot of people right now on the job market preparing for interviews, preparing for their first role or preparing to get back into a new role. What recommendations do you have for people who are on the job market today, the UX job market?
Um, take a lot of breaks, number one, just for mental health. But also look for if you are just I'm on to also the recommendations that I received when I was in that position. And number one, it was setting up coffee chats. And I forgot the name, but there is a I believe it's called Coffee Chat, isn't it?
Oh,
UX coffee chat, or there is an option for it, for talking, setting up 15-30 minutes with professionals already in the field. That was super helpful to me. I did talk to individual contributors, but I did also talk to managers to ask, what do you look for? If I come with this background, this experience, where do you think are my gaps? So I collected this information and I start acting on it. So I will say, yeah, talk to people that are already working in it, and people have been super nice about opening up a space in their busy calendars to talk to people. So I highly recommend that. It was helpful to me. Classes, if perhaps if uh, classes, but what I mean is to try to also keep learning. That way you have more, is more benefit for you. But if there is a financial limitation, there are a lot of free things. um, Also, I was recommended, but I didn't have the chance to do it, is volunteer. There are a lot of organizations that may not have the resources to pay, but they do need UX research. Non-profits, for instance, how helpful, and also how nice for life experience and professional experience to have uh, that kind of help on your resume. So do some work for free if needed, because especially if you are starting, what we need as time is experience, some related applicable experience. And if you say you volunteer, that also gives you that. um, be open to internships. As I said, that's how I started in UX research, and just do it. Some of them are paid, as mine it was paid, but some might not. But just be open to it, because think about the long term. Is an investment now in the short term that is going to have great results in the future, but we need to start somewhere. That's something that I had to work a lot on. Like, all these experts that I see in the field, they started somewhere. They were not born experts.
That's
So
true.
to build the skills, but also to build experience, to have a resume to show. So I think that keep educating yourself, talk to experts already in the field, apply to jobs, and also look for different titles, because organizations call UX research different. It could be design researcher, it could be associate, it could be junior, it could be. So I will say, so for people that are already in the field and are looking for jobs, just try to highlight the best of the best they have done, I would say, because that's apparently what people look for. I had to do a presentation in my interview, in one of the interviews for this job. So be prepared for that. If there is something to show, what would you show? Things like that. And be patient and
Awesome.
remain positive. I know it sounds sappy, like everybody says stay positive, but it's just feel the emotions when they come, but also think that everything's going to pass, and at some point things will just get better. But we just cannot sit
Awesome.
and wait or be upset. We just also need to, one side we cry and get upset and get worried and get fear, but on the other side, like, we just need to keep going. That's what helped me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know we're at time now. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your recommendations with us. It's been so lovely to have you here today. If people want to get in touch with you, how can they get in touch with you?
um, Direct messages here on LinkedIn, or my email is pretty long, but it's my full name, Juliana Castro Osario, no symbols, at yahoo.com, gmail.com, no Yahoo, Gmail, full name at gmail.com. And yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. This was fun and it went super fast.
Yeah, it always does. I know. Well, thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you, everybody who has joined us today. And you can find me at uxrcoach.com. And we'll see you all very soon.
Talk
Thanks.
to Jen. That should be the last recommendation. Talk to Jen. She has been awesome. So, yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Juliana. Bye bye.